Healing is the new high. And let us start. So we have the book here. Share. Over to you, welcome. So we are reading the chapter one, How Many Bodies?
Chapter 1, How Many Bodies? Okay, working through each layer of the self is the key to inner healing. Before we get into the depths of inner healing work, I want to take a moment, in fact, a short chapter, to explain why the book is structured in the way it is and how that structure will support you on your journey. The order of the chapters is no accident, and it's important that you know there's a reason for every page. Even when you're working through those that you find hard or challenging, and even when you're working through those that feel easy and comfortable. As I've already hinted, I wasn't always down with the idea of healing, and definitely not with notions of spirituality or internal growth. I was focused on other things, being a man, or more specifically, living in a way that I perceived was manly, achieving tangible goals and getting the material stuff that I thought would make my life valuable and good. Because of this, I totally relate to people who are turned off by growth, language, or who think that spiritual practices are just not for them. Does that sound like you? If so, I'll tell you this now. You won't be expected to suspend your disbelief as you read this book. I'll ask you to go into it with an open mind and a willingness to play around with concepts you may not have considered before. But I won't tell you that you have to become a spiritual person or start believing in magic or crystals in order to feel better and open yourself up to more positivity and freedom. That said, while I was planning this work, I really wanted to weave into some of the principles of yoga philosophy because these have guided me so brilliantly on my journey. Many people get into the physical practice of yoga and then discover yoga philosophy later, but I got into the philosophy first. I was inspired by the vast number of people who credit the yoga practice with some form of healing, growth, or life improvement. So one day I bought a copy of a book called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The word sutra roughly translates from Sanskrit to English as thread, and this book is an exploration of the threads of knowledge or teachings that make up the holistic practice of yoga, as well as containing English translations of the sutras. It also offers guidance on how each one can help lead the yoga practitioner towards their self, towards enlightenment. I do a little physical yoga practice now too, but my focus is still on meditation. A practice in which an individual is fully immersed in the present moment through their senses while observing calmly and without judgment their thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations. Nevertheless, the Yoga Sutras have become my holy grail. I'm not convinced that enlightenment is the only worthy goal in life. The idea that we are all we need and that we can be free from desire and blissfully happy and peaceful every second of every day for the rest of our lives sounds great, sure. However, I don't believe that our sole purpose on this earth is to reject all the day-to-day stuff and rise above the need for connection with other humans or personal comforts or desire and be pure and perfect beings. To be honest, I've questioned whether this is even possible, especially given that over the years, many of the people who've claimed to be enlightened have turned out to be cult leader like figures. If someone hurt or abused another person through their own desire or because they were affected by the power they attained as others started to believe they were enlightened, well, they couldn't really have been enlightened, right? Personally, I've met only a handful of people who I believe come close to the idea of enlightenment as it's described in many ancient texts, and even they have their limitations. But when I started reading the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, I realized that I could benefit from it hugely without having to believe in that specific outcome. Although the book is
One second. It's got blur. Yeah.
Although the book is full of detailed direction on how best to live our daily life, its approach to this is surprisingly undogmatic. I found that what I got from it ultimately was a kind of confidence that I could feel free. that I could be liberated, not in the traditional sense of enlightenment, but in the sense that I could be liberated from the things about me that stopped me from being confident, secure, and excited about my future. I could take things, what I needed from the book and its wisdom, and put those two teachings into my daily life in a way that worked for me and felt real and genuinely helpful rather than fluffy or fake or pretentious. I could use the lessons in the book in a practical way and pass over the parts that felt completely irrelevant to me. Like the bit that says that your yoga practice space should have a small door and no window. It should be free from holes, cavities, inequalities, high steps, and low descents. It should be smeared with cow dung, not infested by vermin, with the terrace in front, a good well, and the whole surrounded by a wall. Yeah, not every word in the book makes sense to the reader living in a developed country in the 21st century, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that nothing valuable can be gained from reading the text honest. And I did gain a lot of valuable insight from it. A light went on. As I read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, something happened. I began to let go of things that hurt me. I began to accept that I didn't have to be so affected by other people's action. I found that I could choose who I was, and most importantly, that who I was didn't have to be changed by what other people thought of me. I gained a new kind of steadiness, and that steadiness has been the anchor that's kept me strong as I've moved through the process of healing and more letting go and of shedding beliefs and impressions from my past and becoming who I really want to be. So, when I knew I was going to write this book, I struggled with an internal conflict. Although I wanted to include some of the principles of yoga philosophy, the things that helped me so much, I also wanted even more to write a book that wasn't full of Sanskrit or fluffy stuff that I knew would put readers off, because a few years ago I would have been put off by all that stuff, and as a result I'd have missed out on the opportunity to improve my life and to build a better relationship with my past and with my current self. I didn't want anyone, maybe you, to reject the idea of inner healing because it was packed in with loads of spiritual jargon. None of the concepts from yogic text would mean anything to you unless you'd already experienced them in a practical way in your own life. But I knew that if there was a way for me to enable you to experience them and to make them part of your healing process without just talking about them endlessly, they would help you. I knew that they'd add a lot to your life and to your well being and to your capacity for feeling better. I decided to talk to my friend Isla, a yoga teacher and a fellow mind coach. I laid out my predicament. I don't want to leave all this stuff out. You know how much it could add. I feel like I'd be letting readers down if I don't find a way to put these concepts in the book. But don't want to push people away. I don't want it to be another book about healing through yoga that only people who used to do yoga will read. Okay, Isla said. So you want to give them experience of using these principles and feeling them without telling them to chant Sanskrit or asking them to stop being themselves. Right. So, could the book itself be the experience? Do you really have to talk about those concepts the whole way through when you're actually physically practicing yoga? It's not the academic thing. You're not thinking about philosophy all the time. You're just doing it, and the benefits come from just doing it. Is there a way the book could be a way of just doing it? That was it. I needed to make the book an experience, not simply a text to read, but a journey through the self. And then it hit me. The book structure had to form the foundations of the journey. So I scoured the books on my shelves and beyond for clues and filled notebooks with ideas, looking for the perfect healing structure hidden in dreams and centuries of knowledge and philosophy. A journey through self. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, we learned about the five bodies or layers that make our whole self. This is the most common teaching about the bodies, but it's not the only one. I began structuring the book with the five bodies in mind, but it didn't quite click. I found I needed more space, more layers to move through in order to deepen this inner healing work. So I turned to a different interpretation of the bodies, one that used in some school of yoga, including Kundalini. We have seven bodies. What? Okay, stay with me. Like I said, this book isn't going to be full of spiritual jargon, but I do need to include a few words about this concept here for the reasons I mentioned earlier, so that you know there's a purpose to every page, even the ones you'd rather skip. Instead of taking the ideas that follow literally, take them as a way of thinking about the self differently or more holistically. Because in a modern world, we tend to simplify the idea of the whole human, and that means we are not very good at working with all our complexities and different layers and the subtle parts of ourselves that affect every experience, feeling, and thought we have. According to the ancient texts and teachings, each of us has a physical body and a number of subtle bodies. In the particular interpretation I am working with here, there are seven bodies. The globally known Indian guru Osho is perhaps the person best known for talking about, working with, and teaching the seven bodies concept. And he argues that only when we acknowledge and care for each of the bodies equally, we be peaceful, creative, and complete. The physical body is just one expression of us, the most obvious one. But all the seven bodies need to be healthy and cared for in order for a whole self to feel vibrant, to vibrate on a higher level and feel alive and rich with energy and positivity. Each one of our seven bodies or layers of the self needs to be working in harmony with others. Energy isn't an imaginary spiritual concept, it's a reality of our existence. A recent report on energy medicine in the journal Global Advances in Health and Medicines found that energetic therapies, including those based on energetic technologies and those that use direct human touch, are often merged with biochemistry techniques. And this blend of therapy and cutting edge science could bring about great advances in the way medical professionals are able to treat physical, mental, and emotional disorders. Because where modern medicine, including mental health treatment, fails is in its scope, it doesn't look at the whole person, the whole being the whole body, the whole self. We are not machines. We can't erase trauma by getting rid of its symptoms. We have to go deeper into the subtle energies that are always at work within us. But this book isn't about the seven bodies. Instead, it's an experiential journey through them. It uses the seven bodies not as an empirical fact, but a powerful language of understanding, a framework to move through the healing process in a way that builds and takes all aspects of a being into account without neglecting those areas of ourselves that we often ignore when we try to fix only the surface wounds that are easy to see. To vibrate on a high level and feel alive and rich with energy and positivity, each one of our seven bodies or layers of the self needs to be working in harmony with the others. Our seven bodies. This book is a kind of meditation in itself. It's a practical journey, a lived exploration. Right now, I'm going to lay out the seven bodies with a very brief description of each one. So you understand how we'll work through the layers of the self as we go through these pages. And after that, we'll just do it. The physical body. This one doesn't need much explanation. We all know our physical body. Usually, it's the only body we perceive. It's the interpreter between the self and the world. We use it to experience, to sense, to feel, and to express. The etheric body, this body is closely linked with our emotion. It's said to develop between the ages of 7 and 14, but it can continue to change throughout our lives if we work closely with it. This body is where we store our emotional experiences, which then go on to form our perception of ourselves, other people, and the world. The astral body. The astral body is associated with reason, intellect, and logical thinking. It develops through our interactions with the world. So the way that we use logic and reason and thinking power depends a lot on how and where we grow up. However, like all the bodies, the astral body can develop and we can focus on it to change the way we think and to create new patterns, habits, and new motivation to learn and change. The mental body. The mental body goes step beyond the astral body. Instead of logic and reason, it's all about intuition and deeper mental power. This doesn't have to be esoteric. We all have intuition. We all have the capacity to sense things and to predict things and to pick up on tiny signals to build a picture. The mental body creates a more subjective world, but that world is important as any objective experience if there is such a thing. It adds to the fulfillment of life and helps make who you are. The spiritual body. This body is about connection. When we work with it, we open ourselves up to a deeper connection with the true self. That's the self at a core, that steadiness and peace that exist within us always. The cosmic body. Most of us experience the cosmic body at some point without even realizing it. It's the level at which we go beyond the self and feel a connection with everything. Maybe you felt it sitting in nature, sensing the world spinning beneath you, knowing that you're a part of something bigger, feeling love, or just a normal level of warmth and kindness for a stranger on a train for no reason, looking up at the stars, appreciating how small you are in a liberating, wonderful way. The nirvanic body. This body is when we experience ultimate freedom, a true sense of liberation. Nothing in the world can keep us down or hold us back from being who we are. When you work regularly and closely with this body, you can feel free in any moment, no matter what's going on around you. That feeling of freedom will come and go, but it's always possible. Trauma doesn't exist in a vacuum. It affects all seven of our bodies, and because each body plays a part in how we feel, move, breathe, act, live, and inner healing cannot take place if one body is healed. We have to work with all seven and allow new connections to form between them. You get the point. We are going to work with these bodies one by one, going deeper into the self and healing each layer as we move through it. And now, forget everything I've just told you. Well, sort of. You don't need to keep the seven bodies in your head. Trust that you're doing the work by reading the book. There's no need to get caught up in the bodies or identify with them closely because this book will guide you through them effortlessly. Think of it as a concept that helps us approach inner healing in a purposeful way. The bodies, the layers of the self don't need to become a concrete reality in your mind. We are simply using them as a framework to help us explore ourselves more fully. What does inner healing look like? When I talk about self healing, I'm often asked what that actually looks like in real terms. And it's really tough question to answer. I don't want to tell you exactly how you should feel or what outcome you should aim for because there's no should about it. Different people feel different things and need different things and experience different changes and growth patterns as they delve deeper into their inner work. I guess this is a bit of a disclaimer, but here are some general effects you can expect along the way. Read them with the awareness that your journey is unique to you. If you don't experience any of these things, or if you experience a whole host of completely different things, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong or that there's anything wrong with you. You may find that you
Let us see if we can complete it today or should we park it for tomorrow? Mm, Yeah, I think we can just finish this.
we read this part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I lost track. Yeah, we are here, right?
Feel a new You may find that you may feel a new emotional stability and have greater control over your reactions and responses to the things that trigger you, or those triggers will seem to disappear completely. Experience a deep sense of self acceptance. Feel peaceful. Inner work isn't easy to come by. It really does take work, but you'll do that work as you read this book. You'll get there. Gain a new ability to look back on hurtful situations without feeling the pain all over again every single time. Overcome negative behavior patterns that developed following traumatic experiences or events. Let go of your limiting beliefs, the unconscious beliefs you hold about yourself and the world that limit the way you live your life, and create a new set of beliefs that make you feel empowered, positive, and full of hope. Face your inner child and heal wounds that you sustained years ago. Break the cycle of generational trauma so the things that have hurt you won't hurt future generations of your family or community. Feel free. Trauma doesn't exist in a vacuum. It affects all seven of our bodies, and because each body plays a part in how we feel, move, breathe, act, and live, inner healing cannot take place if only one body is healed. We have to work with all seven.
I think we'll stop here today.